Pakistan just handed Iran the most dangerous ultimatum in the Middle East crisis, and Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, and the entire regional power balance may never look the same again. A nuclear-armed military showed up, drew a hard red line around the kingdom, and left Tehran with zero good options, all while being the only reason Iran's economy hasn't already flatlined. Got that? The same country threatening Iran with nuclear deterrence is also the country running its only economic lifeline. And that didn't come as a diplomatic warning. It's a perfectly engineered trap, and Iran walked straight into it. How did this happen? Who planned it? And why is Iran, a country with ballistic missiles pointed in every direction, suddenly unable to make a single move without destroying itself? That's exactly what we're breaking down today. Because what just happened between Pakistan, Iran, and Saudi Arabia is one of the most calculated power moves in the Middle East in recent times, and most people still have no idea what actually went on. Let's start with the situation on ground. Iran has been on an aggressive streak. The Strait of Hormuz has been a flashpoint. The UAE got hit. Regional countries started watching their radar screens a lot more closely. The U.S. has been running a naval blockade strategy in the strait for a while, and things have been escalating. Now here's where it gets interesting. Iran and Saudi Arabia share something they absolutely do not want to share: a future in which either one dominates the Gulf. Iran has ballistic missiles pointed in very uncomfortable directions. Saudi Arabia has been absorbing pressure while quietly upgrading its defenses. But this was a two-player game, right? Wrong. Pakistan decided to show up as a third player. Uninvited by Iran, but very much invited by everyone else. On May 6th, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar announced something that cut through all the diplomatic fog like a blade. He declared Saudi Arabia a red line, not a suggestion, not a gentle caution, a red line. And this was declared in the loudest, clearest diplomatic language Pakistan has ever used in years. He said the kingdom's security is an absolute no-go area, that any hostile move toward the Holy Lands will not go unanswered. Of course, politicians say things like this all the time and mean very little. But Pakistan didn't just say it, it showed it. You may recall an incident back in April this year. A full 13,000 Pakistani troops arrived on Saudi soil, not for a parade, not for a photo op. Fully equipped, combat-ready, heavy infantry deployed into the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. And they didn't come alone. Pakistan Air Force jets, JF-17s and F-16s are now sitting fully armed inside hangars at King Abdulaziz Air Base. Engines ready, pilots on standby. The kind of ready where, if something happens at 2 a.m., these jets are in the air before your coffee gets cold. And the geography makes Tehran very uncomfortable. That base in the eastern province is about 400 kilometers from the Iranian coastline, just across the Gulf. So Pakistan set up shop practically in Iran's backyard, and technically, it's just there to help a friend. The irony here is, Iran spent years worrying about threats from the West. Turns out the danger was quietly building next door to the east. So let's talk about what Pakistan actually brings to this equation, because it's not just troops and jets. Pakistan ranks 14th globally in military strength according to 2026 firepower data. Over 600,000 active personnel, another 500,000 paramilitary forces trained specifically for the kind of harsh terrain that exists on the Iran-Pakistan border in Baluchistan. Then there are the Shaheen-3 ballistic missiles. Range of 2,750 kilometers. From Pakistani soil, those missiles can reach basically every strategic site Iran cares about: military facilities, command infrastructure, underground nuclear centers. These aren't hypothetical weapons collecting dust. They're part of an active deterrent posture. Pakistan also has Gari and Babur cruise missiles. Stealth weapons, by the way, that can carry conventional or nuclear warheads, depending on how serious the situation gets. Think about what that means from Iran's perspective. You're already under a naval blockade. Your oil exports are strangled. Your economy is hemorrhaging. And now, to your east, there's a nuclear-armed military that just told the world it will treat an attack on Saudi Arabia as an attack on itself. That's not a problem. That's several problems stacked in a trench coat pretending to be one problem. Now let's add Saudi Arabia's own air defense into the mix, because this is where the picture becomes genuinely suffocating for Iran's military planners. Saudi Arabia is running over 100 Patriot PAC-3 missile launchers across its territory. VOD batteries, the ones that can intercept threats at the edge of the atmosphere, are also active and operational. This isn't a passive defense network. It's a layered, actively managed shield. When you combine that with Pakistan's JF-17 Block 3 fighters equipped with advanced electronic warfare systems, you've got aircraft capable of navigating through and dismantling Iran's aging air defense infrastructure. Iran's air defense is not young, it is not cutting edge, and the people now flying against it absolutely know that. Earlier in this crisis, Iran fired 38 ballistic missiles and over 430 kamikaze drones at Saudi Arabia. Every single one of those was intercepted before reaching its target. That already tells you something about the defensive capability in play, and that was before 13,000. Pakistani troops and a squadron of PAF jets joined the equation. Here's where the story takes a twist that sounds almost too clever to be real. Iran is currently under a severe Strait of Hormuz blockade. It cannot move oil by sea. It cannot access world markets through its normal channels. Its economy, already fragile, is under enormous stress, and yet it's surviving, barely surviving. And you know why? It's because Pakistan opened trade corridors for it. 6 official land corridors, activated on April 25, 2026. Thousands of containers and oil tankers rolling through Pakistan every single day, moving goods to the ports of Gwadar and Karachi, and from there to world markets. Pakistan essentially became Iran's economic oxygen supply when Iran's lungs stopped working. This is where Pakistan's move becomes genuinely extraordinary. Because now Iran is in a position where the country threatening it militarily is also the country keeping it alive economically. If Pakistan closes those corridors, Iran doesn't just face a military threat. It faces total economic suffocation simultaneously. The strategic term for this kind of move is leverage. Here's Iran walking into a situation where the hand offering it bread is attached to the same arm holding a nuclear weapon. That's a leash, a very politely worded leash. Let's be honest about the historical backdrop here too. Because Pakistan and Iran's relationship is genuinely complicated. These two countries share nearly 900 kilometers of border. They've had persistent friction in the Baluchistan region for years. There have been cross-border skirmishes, proxy tensions, and moments where things nearly escalated. Neither capital has ever been naive about the other. But they've always maintained what you'd call a pragmatic relationship. Not warm, not hostile. Just a functional relationship. Two neighbors who know each other well enough to stay out of each other's lanes most of the time. The Hormuz crisis changed that. Iran's desperation made it dependent on Pakistan in a way it had never been before. And Pakistan, rather than turning its neighbor away, helped. It opened those trade corridors, and it played the mediator in peace talks with Washington. And then, once that dependency was fully established, Pakistan drew the red line. If you're the kind of person who appreciates chess, you just watch someone spend months setting up a position before making the move that wins the game. The mediation wasn't just goodwill. It was also investment in leverage. Now let's zoom out and look at what this means for the broader strategic picture. For Iran, the situation is genuinely dire in a way that has no clean exit. To the west and in the Gulf, there's a coalition of Arab states backed by U.S. naval power. To the east, there's Pakistan, nuclear-capable, militarily formidable, and now explicitly committed to Saudi Arabia's defense under what's being described as a strategic mutual defense agreement. An agreement, by the way, that operates on the principle that an attack on one partner is an attack on both. Iran's famous missile barrage strategy, the idea that you overwhelm a target with sheer volume, is running into a wall. Not just a physical wall of interceptors, but a nuclear deterrent on the other side of the calculation. There's a reason nuclear weapons are called deterrents and not just weapons. They don't have to be used. The fact that they exist, and that the country holding them just declared your intended target a red line, is enough to fundamentally change the math. Iran cannot attack Saudi Arabia without triggering Pakistan's defense protocols. It cannot ignore Pakistan's warning without losing its economic lifeline. It cannot fight back militarily without opening a second front on its eastern border it is completely unprepared for. And it cannot bluff its way through this one because Pakistan didn't bluff. Pakistan deployed. The Tehran administration is, by any reasonable strategic analysis, in a position it has never been in before in modern history. Surrounded, dependent, and out of moves that don't make things dramatically worse. There's also a diplomatic ripple effect worth paying attention to. U.S. President Trump stated he was satisfied with Pakistan's mediation role. That matters, because it signals that Islamabad's positioning tough on Iran, protective of Saudi Arabia. Engaged as a corridor country is being recognized by the most powerful outside actor in this crisis. Pakistan didn't just protect Saudi Arabia. It positioned itself as a credible, indispensable regional power broker. A country that can talk to multiple sides, hold hard lines, and back them up with actual military presence. That's a different league of influence than Pakistan typically occupies in global diplomacy discussions, and Islamabad clearly knows it. So what changed here? What's the actual lesson buried under all this? The Middle East power structure that people have been analyzing for decades, the U.S. versus Iran axis. The Sunni-Shia divide, the Gulf states jockeying for position, just got a new variable. A nuclear-armed South Asian power with a defense pact. Boots on the ground, jets in the air, and complete control over its neighbor's economic survival. The old equation was binary. The new one has Pakistan in it. And Pakistan, as it just demonstrated, is very good at playing multiple cards from the same hand simultaneously. What people are learning from this is something strategists will be discussing for years in a gridlocked crisis. Sometimes the most powerful move is the one no one expected from a country no one was watching closely enough. And this means Iran is going to have to make a choice it genuinely does not want to make. Either it backs down from its regional ambitions, or it finds a way to pick a fight on two fronts against opponents with nuclear weapons. While its own economy collapses under a naval blockade, history has very few examples of that choice going well. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Pakistan's warning and military presence is enough to permanently cool Iran's aggression in the Gulf, or is this just a pause before the next escalation? And if Iran somehow decides to call the bluff and attack Saudi Arabia anyway, what do you think Pakistan's first move would look like? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. This is genuinely one of those moments where reasonable people can disagree, and I want to hear where you land on it. Thanks for choosing WPF. If this breakdown gave you a clearer picture of what's really going on in the Gulf, share it with someone who needs to understand this conflict better. Hit subscribe if you want to keep up with these deep dives, because the next few weeks in this region are not going to be quiet.